Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sheridan Ganger, Head of Customer Success here at Advocate. Thank you so much for joining our live fireside chat. I'm joined by Mr. Mike Ambassador Bruni. Mike joins us with over 10 years of background at Intel, heading up their employee advocacy program. He is an avid conference goer and a life coach. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
As you can see, everybody, we are on a Google Hangout. I am joining you from a very foggy San Francisco August day, while Mike joins us from Boston. All right, so we want to keep this super interactive. So as you saw on the invite, we are going to be monitoring all of the questions live on Twitter, so be sure to ask us questions using hashtag AskAdvocate. Mike, other thoughts before we get started?
Just a quick a bit of input that I didn't run the program at Intel, the advocacy program, just so no one thinks that. I was part of it, and I also helped to run their community management side of things.
Sorry for the confusion there. Thanks for clearing that up, Mike.
Not a problem at all.
All right, so we are here to discuss all things employee advocacy. We've heard about it, we've been reading about it, analysts have been talking about it, the press has been covering it. So Mike, what do you think employee advocacy is really all about?
Well, when I look at it, if you just took the words employee advocacy together, the first thing you would think is that it's about advocating for the employee. But in this case, what we're talking about is really the reverse. It's asking your employees to serve as ambassadors on behalf of the company, asking them to, in many cases, share information, to share content in the social web. It's not the only way of advocating, but it's one of the most popular ways that you hear people talking about, is how do you leverage social media, how do you leverage your employees in order to get the word out there to show that we're more of a human brand.
Great, great. So we think about it, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, we're on it, we're lurking, we're sharing, we're collaborating. What do you think is the human kind of innate reaction to want to share across social media?
There are a couple of things. I think one is, if you go really deep down, it's wanting to be seen, recognized. It's love. It's about connection. We spend a lot of time online and just looking for ways that we can actually connect with people while we are online. And let's not forget to be helpful.
Exactly, exactly. And that kind of ties into the next part of our discussion. I know I'm engaged on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. It's just how we are as humans in this day and age. Why do you think companies should harness their employees' active collaborating on social media rather than kind of hindering it?
Because it exists. You know, and there's a little sense of the things that you try and resist is what persists. So trying to hide or fight against those things will actually increase the chances of people wanting to do it more. It's out there. You might as well see how you can connect with people and how you can help to foster this this movement, and how you can help them to better understand how to use social media better and be a better brand for themselves as well as for the company.
Great, great. Yeah, that concept of building your personal brand reputation is something that really resonates for me. I've done a lot of writing about it. I talk about it when we're training our users. It's something that is really kind of taking social media by storm alongside this concept of employee advocacy. So that kind of leads into my next question is, how do you get an employee advocacy program on the radar of the enterprise?
Well, what I've found is that most of the ways that this is even found is because people are reading and they're seeing the different research that's talking about how customers are 2 times more likely to connect and believe everyday employees instead of executives. That's the Edelman study. Or that most of the purchases we make are really influenced by people we know and not just reviews. You'll find that stuff in like Nielsen. Those are the things that kind of executives are reading these type of things, and then they're saying, hey, how can I kind of be part of this? How can I get this stuff going? So I've seen it as far as the big enterprises. They are taking hold of it because they also have the resources if they decide to focus it there in order to get the kind of things that are needed in order to make this really work.
Yeah, and absolutely. Employee advocacy isn't something that is solely for the enterprise. Any size company can really utilize their workforce to really help get their message across and help their employees connect with their culture in a very unique, very human way, as you mentioned. So regardless of the size of the company, what do you think should be the top focus for the champions that are really trying to roll out this initiative and employee advocacy program?
I think the top focus should be on understanding a couple of things. One is understanding their brand. What is going on with the company's brand? What are they all about? Really get clear on that. And then the second part is really the people who you are going to ask to be champions, to be ambassadors, to be advocates for you, is really getting to know them. Because that is where you're going to be able to keep things rolling and keep the incentives going, is by understanding who the people are, what their interests are, and then matching it to the actual company itself.
Great, and we talk about people, we talk about the workforce. One stigma that I really want to address here is that when I'm talking to customers, talking to prospects, people are very concerned that employee advocacy is something only for marketers. How would you address that when talking to people that are thinking about rolling out this program to really showcase that any employee, anybody in any role, can really become a brand advocate?
I think it's to show the different ways and be able to show step by step, hey, you don't have to necessarily be a marketer, but then again, what is marketing? It's telling stories. It's being connected to the brand and how you tell stories, and showing that we can help to show your employees to do this, and that it's not just about social media, but we can look and understand, which is what I talk about with brand inside brand, understanding the employees and what their strengths are. For all we know, it might be this one employee is the best person to send out into the neighborhood or go to conferences and actually speak. So understanding that aspect of it, so you can show, hey, it's a marketing function, which it can also go into HR, but we're going to show you how it can benefit more than just one area.
Great, great. I couldn't agree with you more. And this kind of, now that we're getting into the nitty-gritty of employee advocacy and the program and the people and the culture of your brand, why do you think employees should care about being this conduit? Why do you think they should be motivated to be connected to their culture and the larger messaging at hand using an employee advocacy program?
I think what we'll find, Sheridan, is that underneath, and I really speak, I also speak from my own experience, is that every day you get up, you go to work, and you may hear this. Once I heard someone say this: I get up, I go to work, I open my trunk, I grab my bag, and I put my soul inside. So there's this disconnection between, hey, here is work that I do and here is life. What a program like this, an advocacy program, allows people to do is to make that connection about the bigger sense of what you're doing, about meaning, about having impact, and saying, hey, look, you see that company over there? That's my company who did X, Y, and Z. And the X, Y, and Z is being provided by the marketing department, if you will, to help fuel and understand that the company is not just about making widgets, and no human being wants to feel like my life is just about making widgets, but it's about making impact.
Great, great. So I know what our decision makers on the line are thinking right now. How much is this going to cost me? How am I going to fight the CFO for the budget? Can you address why investing in an employee advocacy program is going to be a great asset for any company?
When I look at it from a monetary standpoint, I think A is looking at what is it going to actually cost. And even stepping back is really, I've given this a lot of thought, is what problem are we trying to solve? Start there. Because guess what? Maybe you decide that there's a different way you want to do your program. And there's a number of different ways that people do it. They have it set up as almost employee resource groups. So where the funds that you needed are almost already there. So it's coming from a different bucket and not just marketing. It's looking at, well, what is it going to cost me to train these people? What is it going to cost me to deploy the people? And then what return am I going to get? And the return may be, depending on what you're trying to do, awareness from an audience that you would not have reached before. So it's awareness. So it's looking at, hey, how do I measure how many people I reach, how many clicks, how much engagement, how much impressions? And those are the things that you can measure. And then also just looking outside of just the impressions, but looking at how can we leverage the people to get out into the community and do hand-to-hand and actually cut back cost. Instead of hiring a professional to do the sales, why don't we hire someone whose motivation is not in their head but it's in their heart to talk about the product that's in front of them? So those are some of the ways that money can come into play.
Great. So you have a smooth sailing. We've covered buy-in. We've covered budget. Now let's discuss kind of something you just touched upon. educating the users. How do you think a company should go about kind of investing in a training program or educating their users to really understand why this is important for them in building their personal brand, why it's important for the company to help them be that conduit of that message? What do you think?
I think as far as the training goes, there are different aspects that have to be covered, and I like to talk about those things in terms of dividing it into different pillars. But looking at definitely investing in storytelling, and you may not already have these sources inside, but you should outsource and find people who can help you with the storytelling aspect of things, people who can help you with presentation now that you understand the story. The social media aspect, you may have people on your staff who can already help you, but you may need to get someone outside who really understands the intricacies and the beginner's mind, and that's starting from zero, because you may be surprised to find out how many people really aren't engaged in social media or deeply engaged, but we can change that, and that's kind of how you should educate the folks.
Great. So I'm thinking about other SaaS solutions I've used in the past. Adoption and user adaptability is crucial to the success of any sort of SaaS product. How do you think companies should motivate and supercharge their users to get them excited about using an employee advocacy program, to be excited to get involved?
Anytime I hear excitement and wanting to get involved, there's two things that come to mind. One is actually getting them involved, and getting them involved early, ground floor. Guess what? We don't have all the answers. Here's the things that we have. You can be part of the pilot. Help us to make it better. You know, there's that aspect of it, and that's really understanding how do we help the people feel like they're part of this this program, and as it evolves, that they were the ones that actually helped to make this thing happen. I'll just stop at that one point.
Great, and that leads me into another thought that I just came into my head. You talk about, you know, every individual being a contributor to this content and amplifying the message for their brand. Do you see employee advocacy kind of piggybacking on the concept of growing your content marketing efforts? And do you see any user of an employee advocacy program help be a content marketer?
I definitely see it helping to, as far as the content marketing strategy. There's the amplification side of things, and with training, one is with training, but two, you never know who's already in the field, who's doing things outside. That was the case for me when I was working at Intel. I already had all this social media stuff I was doing on my own, so when I became a brand ambassador, it was just natural for me to start putting those things and making video. So training people how to actually do that, then you can start getting content from the inside. Does everyone need to be a content creator? Not necessarily. I think there are some people who will amplify content. There are others who will create it. There are some who, and when I say content, I automatically put it in social media. But as I mentioned earlier, content is also the person who's able to go out and be at the conference. You know, that is also content that they're providing, and it's also a great face-to-face opportunity.
Great. So as we wrap up our conversation here, we've all seen that social media has undergone a remarkable transformation in the past 6 months to a year in terms of, you know, new programs such as employee advocacy and new platforms that are helping kind of extend the reach of people's touch across social media. What do you think's next?
I think what's next is now we're going to start having the thought and discussions around longevity. I think building a program, or starting a program is different than building and maintaining a program. So I think we're going to start seeing the focus being less on just the external, what the employee can do for us, and start to look at helping to create a brand. Because if it's a team and you make each individual stronger, the whole team is better. So I think you're going to start seeing that. How can I build up these individuals? You're also going to see kind of specialization and looking at, hey, what is this person really good at? Okay, I know what they're good at, so I will call on them to help and be advocates when that is needed. So I think you're also going to see some stuff about different ways of rewarding people.
Great, great. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for joining. We've had a couple of questions coming through the live Twitter stream. I'm just going to open up my chat here, and let's see. If I'm a marketer, Mike, how do I really, and I know we touched on this a little bit, how do we really measure the success of a program like employee advocacy?
To be honest with you, I so think it goes back to starting with the question of what problem am I trying to solve? Because right now it's very easy to become a Me Too marketer. They're doing brand advocacy or employee advocacy. I want to be in it too, or even pressure from up top. Hey, we better be in this. But a lot of times the measurement may not even start external. It's internal. Do a survey and find out how many people understand your brand message internally. That's how you start. And then you do your brand advocacy thing, and then on the back end see, hey, how many people now better understand it? Because now you really have advocates and you start to spread the word. So for me, that's one way that you can you can measure it. But it starts with what problem are you trying to solve?
Great. And somebody else is kind of asking if we could get a little bit more into how do you motivate, how do you excite your users in terms of giving them the proper training and the proper collateral to make sure that they're successful once they get their hands on an employee advocacy platform?
Yes. So I go back to making them, don't wait till everything is perfect. That's one thing. So getting them excited about training, help them to become part of this. And I'm assuming that you're starting off with some kind of a pilot. Get these people involved, make them feel like they are actually shaping this. Step 2 is build a community. You have a bunch of people who are doing this advocacy stuff, and they may be all around the world. Find a way to get them on a call every so often so they feel a sense of community with each other. The other thing, dear marketers, and this is making an assumption that it's the majority as marketers, is marketing speak is not going to cut it. You have to remember the people you are talking to work in different fields. So you have to think about worldview. What's going on in their world? Step out the office. If it's manufacturing, go spend a day or half a day in manufacturing. You'll realize that what you're asking them to do may not be as feasible. When you say, hey, please share this content using X, well, their life is totally different than that. That insight is going to allow you to create solutions. They're going to feel listened to, and then you're going to see your training and your education, all the things you're doing. They feel like they're part of it. It's really tough to say I don't like it when you were the one who helped to create it. Mm-hmm. So that's my deeper dive into it.
And I say the exact same thing when I'm on my training with my users and with my super admins. Exactly, you nailed that one on the head, Mike. Here's a question that I hear quite a bit, and especially in terms of different industries. My company is really focused on controlling their message. How do I deal with that?
Being flipped. Then don't do it. Right? Then don't start. I'm kind of kidding. But looking at what is the message that you want to put out there. And this is the understanding the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. If it's very crucial that every single word be in a certain place, then you're gonna have to just feed the people the stuff that you want them to say. If there is room and say help people with more of the spirit to understand when you are in a certain situation, here are the choices you need to make. Here is the matrix you can use that will help you make a better decision. Then you're in a better space. There's something called commander's intent, and that's the understanding that there's somewhere I'm trying to get to. If you ever run into trouble and the plan goes awry and someone asks you what were you trying to do, well, I was trying to get to the commander's intent. The plan wasn't the same, but the end goal was. And if you're okay, if you can accept that, then you're going to be in a much better place. It's going to be a much more open conversation if something does go awry. So you can help to course correct, but no one wants to feel like, hey, first of all, I'm taking on extra work. This is not, most people don't get paid to do this, and now I feel so restricted. So you just want to be careful about that and figure out, I'd say, more of the spirit of the law.
Great. I might have to use that one, the spirit of the law. I like it. I love how this question starts. I really want to do this. I want to deploy an employee advocacy program, but how many employees do I really need to make a pilot successful? What do you think, Mike?
It's an interesting question, and I keep going back to, hey, what are you trying to solve? What do you want to know at the end of the day? Like that's where my heart starts, because having been in a program, having worked on the back end, I kind of have that 360-degree perspective. And as far as a good pilot, I would say even starting off, you can get 20 people, 20 to 25 people. What I would focus on instead of just sheer number is start off by looking at your overall company. Look at how it's set up. And look at the different branches, if you will. Okay, there's manufacturing. Okay, there's sales. Okay, make sure you have representation. that is going to be, in my opinion, more important, because what you're also going to do is you're going to discover the nuances of what you need to do and how the information is set up, because it really can't be one big broad stroke across the board.
Great answer, and that ties into another question. If I am rolling out an employee advocacy program, what are the landmines? What are the obstacles that I should be prepared for?
That is a great question, and let me see. One is, if you're rolling it out, one is, I mentioned earlier, is marketing speak. So you over marketing to them. You are giving them so much about the brand message that it's like you really have to be able to filter and say, what do they need to know? That's a hard thing for you to say. But what do they need to know, and what do they need to know right now? So think drip, drip, drip instead of fire hose when it comes to information. So that's one landmine. The other thing you want to be careful for is actually a lack of information. It's easy to forget depending where you're located, right? I was part of a program where we had people all over the place, and I was on the East Coast where most of the people were on the West Coast. So it's easy to forget about that person who's over there. So another landmine is remembering how far away people are, not having community in a place where you can constantly share information, feeling like you are in charge, because I just have this vision in my head that this is actually coming from on high. CMO maybe said, hey, why don't you test this thing out? So you have that going on, so you have this pressure on you, and you feel like you are going to create this program, when in essence you are going to help to provide some direction, but you're going to need the advocates to help shape it. And you have to be open. There has to be a little bit of sense of opening up the kimono and letting people know, hey, I don't have all the answers, but let's work together to get there.
Great. So I say we take this conversation international. What if a company has offices, let's say, in Europe? Will an employee advocacy program work if you have multiple offices across the world?
That is a great question. My answer is yes. There are nuances, and right away I have a picture of a whiteboard in my head. So if I'm working with a client around this kind of issue, the first thing that I would do is we would whiteboard it out and look at the different regions that they're looking to do. What kind of plan are they looking to do overall? And then see what are some of the nuances. Because the way that social media is in one place may be different from there. One of the things that I've seen, let's talk about Asia. So we may be pushing Facebook, 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 but that wasn't an option. Or what's popular in one place is not popular in another. So it's whiteboarded out and looking at where the little nuances that you would need. Another thing you may want to do is actually launch in geos. So don't do Europe, US, everything at the same time. Latin America, do each group at a time. You will learn different things and you'll be able to apply them.
Great, Mike. And that is a great segue to kind of wrap things up here. I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of our viewers on our Google Hangout. We thank you so much for joining us to learn more about employee advocacy. A big, big thank you on behalf of the Advocate team to Mr. Mike Bruni for joining us. Mike, thanks so much. It was such a pleasure, as always, working with you. I'm always learning from you constantly throughout our conversations, and it's really motivating to see somebody with such passion for a program like employee advocacy. So thank you so much.
Sheridan, it's 100% my pleasure, and I look forward to being of service to everyone here.
Great. Just a reminder to everybody on the Google Hangout, we did record the session, so if you want to share it with a friend, a colleague, boss, neighbor, we will be sure to be posting it up on our Advocate blog, so you can check it out there. And until next time, thank you so much.